few weeks ago, I made this video criticizing the job homogenization in FF14, and while I do think I made valid arguments, I saw a few comments that made me rethink my position. In particular, comments that brought up encounter design being the bigger factor in enjoyment. And you know what? That kind of changed my perspective. That's something I definitely considered while making the video, but not something I put in because I was talking more about job design. But I think that these comments are actually right. Not to invalidate my old video, I still believe that making every tank feel similar hurts the overall job design, but I can't lie and say that encounter design isn't another huge factor in this. So let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation about encounter design in FF14 and how it relates back to my job homogenization video. Compared to other MMOs, FF14 fights are primarily dance fights, meaning it revolves more around where you are in the arena. Let's take a look at the third Abyssos fight. I'll be using Hector's Guide as my example solely to get this point across. In terms of solving mechanics, you're just moving to a certain spot in the room. Monsters will spawn certain effects, but the only real interactive elements would be the Minotaurs and the Bulls, which will spawn straight line AoEs facing the player. Other than that, it's just being in the right place at the right time, much like most of the fights in this game. I have seen P8S with the different creations, but my stack did fall apart before I can make it there, and I got a bit burnt out, so I didn't think it'd be fair to talk about that. That being said, we have established the meaning of dance fights, being fights that revolve around a coordinated group movement around the arena, and in general, I do enjoy these fights. Now I'm going to pause the video right here to ask that you hit the like button and maybe subscribe. I am always working on more FF14 and WoW content. It's completely free, and we are almost to 300 subscribers. So thanks for that. Now back to the video. Alright, so let's rewind a bit. How does this affect the enjoyment or engagement from certain jobs? And how does it relate to my other video? Well, since I singled out tanks in my last video, I'll use them as my primary example. Tanks are one of two roles that have access to interrupts, which you really only use in dungeons, making this button kinda useless in raids. Tanks also have access to low blow, which is a stun, another useless ability in raid encounters. And with raid encounters being the primary form of in-game content, that's two things you don't have to worry about. Two buttons that can make the fight just a little bit more engaging. And that's the real problem that I think I have been having. I'm just not engaged in some of these fights, and I don't engage with the simple rotations either, which helps create a lot of the issues that I have in this video. Of course they feel the same when fights play out in almost the exact same way every time. If I'm hitting the same 5 buttons, that's not inherently engaging, at least to me. However, if I'm hitting the same 5 buttons while dodging mechanics, that's a bit more engaging. Now add on tank busters, yeah, I'm a bit more engaged. Now also add an interrupt for me to keep an eye on, I'm even more engaged. And maybe add like an ad phase or something, ads that can be CC'd, and I am definitely more engaged. The point I'm trying to get across is that while yes, I do enjoy FF14 raid encounters, I think that adding more interactive elements such as CC or interrupts would really help the jobs that feel homogenized or more simple feeling. After a certain amount of pulls, it is easy to get bored. That's one of the risks that you take when fights are so telegraphed. I think this comment nails it the best. I will argue that more buttons to have to press doesn't make the gameplay better. I think the button limitations of, say, Guild Wars 2 is one of its strengths, and many games get their complexity based on how you use your buttons rather than how many of them you can stretch your fingers to reach and work your muscle memory to do reliably. Fun fact, this is actually the comment that inspired me to make this video. Well, there's one line that I really want to single out: complexity based on how you use your buttons. I think that nails it right on the head. While I do think that tanks and healers can use a bit more complexity, more buttons to hit, there's more nuance to it all. This is something I didn't think about, something I'd regret not bringing up in the last video. Part of the gameplay is the actual encounters, the boss you're facing, and sometimes I think that's easy to forget. So going forward, I think that including encounter design in these little debates or discussions is important. And if you ask me, I think that FF14 should definitely do their best to incorporate more engaging, interactive mechanics into their fights in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Click this video on screen for more content. Thanks again, and take care.